All right, guys, here we go. This is the assembly video for the BangGOD. This is going to cover 5-inch, 6-inch, and 7-inch variants. This is the frame assembly by itself, okay? The bare frame going together, and the steps you need to take to make this thing come together. This is not assembly of the electronics into this system. However, during the assembly, I will discuss a little bit of that here and there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab a completed frame to show you what this thing looks like. All right, here we go here. This is a 5-inch. It's kind of hard to see with these big straps on here. All right, this is what she's going to look like when she is fully assembled. This one happens to have the optional rear brace. The 5-inch and 6-inch do not come with the rear brace. This is a 7-inch version of the frame. The 7-inch version does come with the rear brace. Okay, so it comes in the kit and all the hardware that you need to install the brace. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and what I'm going to show you is that this thing is extremely easy to put together. Okay, and the basics of putting in the electronics is, if you've built one of these before, it's pretty much standard stuff. In the center of the frame here, you've got your stack, which is your all-in-one all-in-one ESC, and then your flight controller. And then most people are probably going to want to install all of their other stuff in the back. So like your VTX, for instance, your receiver, obviously your FPV antenna is here, and then your FPV camera is up front. Now, we do sell some accessories for this guy, like this GoPro mount right here. All right, we've also got a session mount. And other bits and pieces. One other thing that I wanted to mention is this little TPU part is not included in the kit. This is an optional part that allows you to put an SMA antenna on here. Okay, and we are going to have other things coming in the future. For instance, for this 7-inch freestyle and long range frame, we're going to have a GPS mount coming. We're going to have some various options for mounting in your crossfire antenna and all sorts of cool stuff that's on the way. So just stay tuned for that. And let's go ahead and get started. So we've got all the pieces laid out here. And what I'm going to do is take the bottom plate. Okay, this is the bottom plate. And then we're going to install the arms and the standoffs into this first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to get these other pieces out of the way. All right, we're going to keep this. Okay, so this is obviously the bag of hardware here. I'm going to pour all this out. Okay, I'm going to take all of the standoffs. There we go. And we're going to get the screws for those. Now, this is where you need to make a decision, okay? There's two ways that you can mount in the rear arms. You can do it like this, where the rear arms are on the same plane, okay? Or you can stagger the arms. And what that means is basically you put these standoffs on the bottom of the arm, and then the arm now moves up to the top here. And so that puts your rear motor sitting at a higher elevation than the front. And that methodology is taken from racing. And if you'd like to use it here, you have every right to do that. So you need to decide which route you're going to go. For this build, I'm going to go ahead and build it just like this. Okay, so we've got all that. Now what we're gonna need are we're gonna need 8 of the blue screws, okay? And they're the M3 by 12 millimeter screws. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those now. All right, my friends, I've got the screws together. Again, these are M3 by 12 millimeter. You're gonna wanna use the blue screws. The reason we're using these blue screws is these are super screws. They're 170,000 PSI strength screws. These are literally the best thing that you can find out there in the world, and we're using them on this frame. The reason is because we want high strength in areas of high loading. So shear stresses and things of that nature are happening where components join together, so like the arms, for instance, to the main structure. There are other locations in the frame where we don't need screws with that prowess, and so we're just using stainless steel there. I'll get to that later. So let's go ahead and start. We'll start out with one arm and just run it through. Now you're going to notice that there's going to be a tight fit from the screw into some of these holes, and that is by design. Okay, that's to help with arm slop, the dreaded arm slop. Oh my God, if you've got arm slop, ooh boy, it can be bad. It can be bad. The FPV world stops spinning when somebody talks about arm slop. All right, this design, it doesn't have any arm slop because it's awesome sauce. My God, the phrase arm slop that's a bad word. Okay, here we go. I bet you can sense my sarcasm. Okay, we're gonna do another one here. All right, we don't really need to crank everything down super duper tight right now. I suggest to just put it in there decent and then go back and tighten everything up fully once you've got it all together. Okay, so there's that. Now we'll get the rear arms. And again, don't forget at this step, you can decide to stagger the arms or to do it flat like I'm doing it. I'm missing, there we go. Oh, and some of you might have noticed my driver. Ignore the fact that it says 2 mil on it. You have to apply these stickers yourself, and I put the wrong sticker on the wrong one, so I switched these accidentally. So this is actually a 2.5 mil driver that I'm using on these screws here. And while I'm on the subject of drivers, these drivers that I'm using are made by a company called MIP. And these were given to me as a wonderful birthday present from my builder. And what an amazing present that this is. These are expensive, okay? They're really expensive, but they're really, really awesome. And you may think, oh, a driver, who gives a hell? That's okay, I'll just use whatever I find. No, that's stupid. These make a huge difference. I want you to trust me. I don't work for MIP. I don't even sell their stuff. That's how much I believe in these things. If you build these a lot, okay, You're using these constantly all the time as an FPV nerd. Get yourself some good drivers. Do yourself a favor. All right, so that's all done. Okay, so that is what it looks like. Now we'll go on to the next step. I'm going to go ahead and install these standoffs here. These are 22 millimeter long. They're just black aluminum knurled standoffs, and we're going to use M3 by 8 millimeter. These are not the blue ones. These are stainless steel. To give you a comparison, stainless steel, at least this type of stainless steel, which I believe is 318, is 70,000 psi strength screws in comparison to the blue, which are 170,000. So there's a pretty significant difference there. Well, we don't need that crazy strength here in the back in these locations, so we're just using stainless steel because the blue ones are expensive. If I used the blue ones everywhere, the price of the frame would go up and you guys would be mad at me. And I don't want you to be mad at me. Okay, there we go. We'll go on to the next step. Okay, we've got those installed. Now it is time to put on the front bulkhead. Okay, now there's two versions of this front bulkhead right now. You may receive one of these. This is one of the versions here. You can see it has these little tiny nipples here, and there's little tiny holes right there. There's another version of it out there that looks like this. It's got bigger holes here, okay, bigger hole in the top. Now, if you have this type, what you're going to want to do is look in your kit, and there's going to be two brass press nuts. You want to just press those into these holes just with your fingers like this, okay, and install them like that. All right, and that's it if you have this version. If you don't have that version, you don't do that, okay? But what you do, pardon my French. Oh man, that's a really bad joke. That's terrible. You're going to get two of these sheet metal screws. These are number 4 by 1/2 inch long sheet metal screws, and we got to get a Phillips head screwdriver. And we're going to install this guy. Make sure to have it pointed this way. So these little circle deals are pointed backwards to the back of the frame. And we'll install that now. Just like this. You'll find there's little guide holes. These are self-tapping screws. So they're going to find their way through this soft TPU material into the hole, and they'll pull this part up against the carbon. And you don't have to go and use Hulk strength and strip and tear up the TPU part. Okay, just run these in until it's snug like that and back off. That's all you need. I know you're strong. You don't have to prove anything to me. Okay? We know you're strong. All right, there, that's going like that. Perfect. So this is like this. Now, you're going to notice that there, excuse me, are some channels. There's one on the top and there's one on the bottom. That is for you guys that are going to use the DJI system. As you know, it's got an air unit that'll sit in the back. Then there's a long cable that runs through, and you can run it on the top or the bottom. We've found that running it on the bottom probably is the way to go. So you'll have to go ahead and run that prior to installing this. So you'll have to keep that in mind. I don't know why DJI didn't make the camera removable from the cord. DJI, why didn't you do that? That's okay though, maybe they'll do that in the future. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is get these two side plates and install them onto the bulkhead. You're gonna use the same type of screw. They are right here, same ones. two per side. All right, there we go. So we'll install these now. Okay, just hold it in place. All right, and again, you don't have to go crazy with it. Just, you're going to see that this part is going to deform and move around the screws. That's all by design. It's supposed to do that. This TPU bulkhead is basically a movable soft coupling between the entire front section of the frame to the fuselage. And so in impacts, it's designed to move around. Oh my Lord. It is designed to move around and disperse some of that impact loading. That's why it's there. So we'll go ahead and install this other screw. There we go. It should be just like that. There we have it. Okay, guys, the next step has to do with installation of the stack. Okay, and as I said, I'm not going to do a full electronics install, but I do want to give you some guidance with regards to that. So I'm going to simulate sort of installing the stack with these two old boards I found in my nerd box. Old Speedix, and this is an old Hobby Wing flight controller. So what we're going to do is take 4 of the M3 by 8mm nylon screws and run them in, and then you've got these standoffs. There's going to be 8 of these standoffs, little nylon standoffs, and you'll run this on here in all 4 locations. And of course you can put standard or micro size components in here. These are standard boards, full size. All right, when you install the speed controller, you need to make a decision. If you look at how this thing is designed, it's just like the smooth operator, where we have a sort of a little holder, a little grommet that's designed into the top plate to hold your pigtail. So you can flip this top plate over 180 degrees so that this is on the other side if you want, or you don't even have to use this if you don't want. You can route your pigtail however you want to do it. But if you decide, let's say for instance, to route the pigtail on this side, maybe it would make sense to go ahead and install the ESC so that the pigtail pads are also on the same side. So I'm going to simulate that. We'll install it here, and then take the rest of the standoffs and put them in, like so. There we go. Take the flight controller and put him in there. All right, now there's something you need to be aware of is the cable, the cable that runs up to the flight controller from the ESC. If you find out that these are getting in your way, do this. Okay, flip it over. Now the cable's on the other side. Problem solved. All right, so we'll imagine that I did it this way. And then we can put these little nylon M3 nuts on here. Now you've got 22 millimeter of space top to bottom, from the bottom plate to the top plate. So you should be able to mount, well, pretty much anything that's on the market in this frame. All right, now at this point, actually before I mounted in the flight controller, I would have run the wiring to the speed controller, right, and out to the motors. Okay, so I'll get the frame I've got here and show it to you. Obviously, you'd want to do that step prior to putting in your flight controller. But here you can see how we've run the wires here. Okay, we decided to do it on this side of the arm because the props are spinning in this direction, and it protects the wires from the props if there's a prop strike. Okay, so that's how you'd want to do that. So there's that. Now, the next step is to go ahead. Let's imagine for a minute that I've got the motors installed. The motors are installed, and that's fine. Now you need to install the front brace. The way that the front brace works is, okay, you can see that it joins, it just snaps into the two side plates here, these two vertical plates. It snaps in right here. You might have to use a little bit of pressure to get it in, but it should go in. If for some reason, you know, we've done a production run, I test fit all the parts on this particular production run, and these two parts fit together perfectly. As you do different production runs, things can change. And so if you get some parts on down the road where this is too tight of a fit, you can't get it in, just take a file and remove a little bit of material on this surface right here, on the vertical plate right there, and it should snap right in, no problem. Okay, so getting back to the front brace, the way that it works is these two screws here are M3 by 8 millimeter stainless steel cap head screws, socket head screws. They go into the motor. Then you've got, these are blue M3 by 14 millimeter super screws. And you've got washers. These are aluminum washers. So these screws go through this brace, through the arm, and into the motor. Okay, so I really can't simulate doing that here because I don't have a motor. So you'll just have to imagine for a moment that I did it. And this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so what I will do is go ahead and snap this in. Just like that. Nice and easy. I want to go ahead and discuss the rear brace. As I mentioned earlier, the rear brace on the 5-inch and the 6-inch is optional. I just so happen to have one here that has that installed, so I'll show you how it works. The way that this thing works is your rear brace is going to come with the associated screws that you need to install it. So it's going to have, these are M4 by 14 millimeter. There is a little black plastic spacer that goes in between the brace and the arm, and then your screw goes through all that stuff and into the base of the motor. And then of course you're going to have longer screws here to install into these locations to join the brace to the back of the fuselage. So that's how that works. On the 7-inch, the brace and all the hardware that you need to install the brace come with it. So there's that. So let's go right along here. And what is next? Okay, guys. So the next step is to go ahead and install the top plate. Before we do, we're going to take this little grommet that comes in your kit and install it into this. Now, of course, if you're not running your pigtail through there, you don't have to do that if you don't want. And again, you can mount this here, or you can flip it over and you can mount it on that side. I'm going to mount it on this side and go ahead and install this here. All right, like this. There we go. Now, you want to use the blue screws again this time. We're going to use M3 by 8 millimeter. There should be 8 of them. There we go. So, let's go ahead and get started installing those suckers. So the blue ones go into the arms, or rather the standoffs that are joining the arms to the frame. Whoa. Okay, that part's done. Right, in this next step, we're going to take 2 more of these sheet metal screws, number 4 by 1/2 inch long, and we're going to install them through the carbon fiber plate here into the bulkhead. Okay, now you're only going to use this screw type in the event you have the bulkhead that does not have these little press nuts. Okay, just get it to where it's snug. There you go. Now, if you do have the bulkhead that has these little press nuts in it, the screw that you're going to use is M3 and it's stainless steel. Okay, and the method to install this, excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. The method to install these screws is important. What you want to do is you don't want to run these screws in and keep going and keep going. You want to get them to where they're snug and then stop. And basically what you're going to see is the head of the end of the screw is just peeking right at the edge of the nut. And that's all you need. It doesn't need to be crazy tight, anything like that. And just get it snug and leave it. You're good. All right, so the next step, let's go ahead and install the screws in the rear. And they're stainless steel M3 by 8mm. Oops. Okay, now you've got one more knurled standoff in the kit. This is a M3 threaded black aluminum standoff, and it's 28mm long. So what we'll do is take two more of these M3 by 8mm stainless steel. We'll put the standoff in place right here, and then we'll run these in. All right, so that is done. Okay, for the most part, that's it. All right, so very simple frame to put together and maintain and live with. Okay, so now there are some other pieces and bits that come in your kit, and I'm going to go ahead and explain those now. Also included in the kit are some little M2 screws. So what you've got here is you've got M2 by 5mm, and these are M2 washers. What these are going to be used for is to go into the side or through the side plates, these little slots here, and then into your FPV camera. All right, so if you're using an analog camera, like let's say a run cam or a Foxy or something, that's what you're going to want to use, and of course use the washer with the screw. Now, if you are using a micro camera, what you're going to need is this adapter. Okay, RunCam makes this. We sell it. Lots of people sell it. It's easy to get a hold of, and it works very, very well. And so you can use that to mount that size camera. We are going to be coming out with a spacer that will allow you to fit a mini camera in there, and it will fit a full-size camera just standard. You can just plop the camera right in there and it'll fit perfectly. Now, if you're using the DJI system works a bit different. You're going to need these screws that come in the kit. They are M2 by 10mm right here. And there's these little aluminum spacers. And the way that it works, oh, and you want to use the two washers, of course. All right, I can't pick it up because of these gloves. Oh, I did, look at that. I'm getting good. All right, you'd run it like this. You put the spacer on either side of the camera, and they hold the camera in just like that. Okay, it works very well. And get that camera held in there. So there's that. Now, if you're running that DJI system, I don't happen to have one here with me, but your air unit is going to be back here, and then you're going to need some way to install the antenna mounts or the antenna properly. We sell an optional accessory to make that happen. So that's good to use with the DJI system. All right, the kit is also going to come with two Velcro straps. The first one goes here. Like this. in the front of the battery. All right, and then the last one, the other one goes through the back. You can run them through these slots here in the back, and then up. Okay, like this. You can do it like that. Now, there is another option for running your battery. It's called toilet tank, is the slang term. And what it means is that your battery, let me get a battery. Your battery sits like, instead of going like this, it sits like this. All right, some pilots had asked for that, so we made it happen, and it works with these slots here. Okay, so you'll run this through here. You pick one of these slots, probably this one, and you'll run it up through here, and then it'll hold the battery in place like a toilet tank. So that's pretty cool. All right, so the next thing I want to do is discuss some of the differences between the 7-inch version of this frame and the 5 and 6-inch version. Okay, the only differences between the 5 and the 6-inch are the arms and the braces. So the arms are a bit longer on the 6-inch, and the brace, of course, in the front is also a bit longer on the 6-inch. So the 7-inch uses 3 sets of standoffs per arm, but of course they work in the same way. And that's really the only major difference. Everything is extended and larger. It's got a thicker top plate, 2.5 mil as opposed to 2 mil on this. You can't do toilet tank on this guy. You've got to run the battery along like this. And of course, this comes with the rear brace. This rear brace, while it comes in the kit, is optional. You don't have to run it if you don't want to. So if you want to keep it lighter, you're doing just long range, maybe you don't want to run that rear brace. But it is good insurance, especially if you're going to use this for freestyle. For the video, I'll discuss the camera mounts. There are various versions of this camera mount. There's one for a 7-inch, which these little protrusions on the bottom stick farther down to get the camera higher up to help with getting the props out of shot. There is a session mount that works the same way. It attaches to the frame in the same way. And so because of that, what comes in the kit is going to be the same, whether you've got the 7-inch, the 5 or 6-inch version of this, or the session mount. So what it comes with is this screw here. We've got one of these. Okay, there are a couple aluminum sleeves, some washers, a couple washers, a nut, and then this plastic, this little plastic angle bar. Now, actually, there's 2 of these, okay? So it comes with this one, which has the numbers 20 to 35. So that means that this angle bar can achieve 20 to 35 degrees of angle with this. There is also another one. I forgot to grab it at the shop, but it's just like this, but it's a bit longer, and it says 35 to 50. And so if you use a longer one, obviously it can do anywhere from 35 to 50 degrees of angle on the mount. So the first thing you want to do to install this onto your frame, excuse me, is take these sleeves. Now, both of these sleeves go into this angle bar. There is only enough sleeves to go into one angle bar, so you need to decide what angle you're going to run your camera at. So go ahead and make that decision and press these in. These are really easy to get in here. They go in the bigger hole, and you basically just put them in, press them in like that. Okay, that's how they go in there. Now, then you want to take your angle bar and turn it to where the numbers are facing away from the camera lens. Okay, so flip it like this. Now, you're also going to have in the kit a little brass press nut. You're going to press that into the mount. Oops, that's the wrong screw. We're going to take this one here, I believe this is M3 by 30 mil. Okay, and we'll run that over here all the way through until it meets that press nut. All right, get it nice and snug. Okay, there should be decent resistance when you move this thing. Okay, but you don't need to just keep cranking on this thing until it, until it completely deforms this. We know that you're strong. I know you work out. There's nothing to prove here. All right, just get it snug like that. There we go, just like that. Now, the next step is this portion here is going to be a press fit onto this guy, this standoff right here. So we're going to take this off. All right, then take the mount. Press the standoff in there, get it centered up as good as you can, like that, and then install this onto here. Now you'll see that there's a little slot that's going to match this just like that. Let's put the screws back in place. Like this. There we go. And as you can see, it can pivot just like that. So obviously now what you're going to do is take and position this, line this up in the slot, okay, and then run your big long screw through. Now, how this thing works is you can see on the back, let me position this just right. On the back of this part, there is a little indicator. Oops. It's basically a little raised section, a little spike, and that matches up to this little indicator, right? Oops. Come on, camera. There we go. Matches up to this indicator here. Okay. Now, when those are lined up, when you line those two up, that means that the angle of this mount is exactly 30 degrees. Okay. If this is sitting at the very top, if you run the screw up all the way to the very top of the slot, that is now 35 degrees. If it's all the way to the bottom, that's exactly 20 degrees. Okay, and the same goes for the other angle bar, which is 35 to 50. Okay, it works in the same way. Depending on where you've got this located is the angle that the camera's at. So we'll go ahead and finish this up, run a washer onto the screw, and you can pick a side. It really doesn't matter which one you go through, which side you go through. We're going to run it through like that. Okay. Put a washer and the nut. Okay, decide what angle you're going to run. I'm going to do 30 degrees. It's a very popular freestyle angle. And I don't have a proper nut driver right now, so I'm just going to use some needle nose pliers. Should work fine for now. Okay, I'm going to get it snug, and then I'm going to go through here, and I am going to line up. Let me see if I can get this on camera. I'm going to line this up. Oops. Got to loosen it up just a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to go line that up. I don't know if this camera's going to focus. I'm giving it up. I don't think my camera's going to focus. You're going to have to imagine for a minute that I've lined up those little bumps and that they are lined up. So now we're going to go back and tighten this down. Okay. Whoops. My wife says I'm like a bull in a china shop. I think she's right. Yeah, that's an accurate assessment. Now you can put some decent torque onto this thing. Okay, again, don't go ridiculous and Hulk on me, but torque it down pretty tight, and then this thing is not going to move in a crash. All right, and you're good to go. If you line up those little features there, you're going to know it's exactly 30 degrees, and all is well in FPV land. Okay, guys, that pretty much sums it up. That brings a close to this frame assembly video. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me at info@catalystmachineworks.com. I personally man that email server, and I'm always reading and responding to emails, so feel free to email there. Or you can email my tech guru. He's at support@catalystmachineworks.com. Thank you. Now go fly.